Hi, fifth grade. Today is Friday, May 8th, and we are going to be doing math review together. We made it through a long week of distance learning, so we're going to finish up with a strong Friday, and then we're all going to be able to celebrate our hard work together tonight at the movie night. I hope that you guys are planning on joining us to watch The Lion King. So, to be prepared for today's math review video, you need to have couple of things with you. You need to have a piece of scratch paper and a writing utensil, and then you need to have today's math review work open in a separate tab. The way that you get to that is by going to this week's distance learning folder, going to math review, and then opening up Friday's assignment. Make sure that you have all those things and then come back to the video when you're ready. So now that you have all your materials prepared, you're going to go through and work on all the problems in the packet and come back to the video when you're ready to discuss your answers. So again, you're doing all of the problems, writing them down on the scratch, or not writing down the questions, but writing down your answers and solving on the paper that you have with you, so that when you watch the video, you'll be prepared to share your answers and to revise your answers. Pause the video to work on that and come back when you're ready. Okay, so you're back on this video. You've solved all the problems, but if you haven't solved all the problems, then you should pause the video again and go back and solve the problems. So for numbers 1 and 2, you're actually just going to take a look at my work and check your work against mine. And in my work, you'll see that I set up both number sentences first, and then I showed how I solved in order to get my final answer, which is circled. So pause the video here to double check your work against mine. If you're noticing that you got incorrect answers or that you made mistakes, make sure to revise those mistakes. And if you're very, very confused on how to solve these problems, then you should check in with your teachers. The next problems we're going to do together says if 8 is multiplied by a fraction greater than 1, which of these could be the product? So here we need to think of our rules when it comes to scaling. So whenever we multiply by a fraction greater than 1, what happens to our product compared to our original factor? When we multiply by a fraction greater than 1, our product is larger than our original factor. So for example, if I multiply 1 by a fraction greater than 1, such as 3/2, then I'm going to get 3/2. 3/2 is greater than my original factor, which was 1, because 3/2 is equal to 1 and 1/2. So whenever you multiply by a fraction greater than 1, your product will always be greater than the original factor that you started with. So, knowing that rule, if 8 is multiplied by a fraction greater than 1, which of these answers could be possible? Well, it wouldn't be 8 because you would only get 8 if you multiply by a fraction equal to 1. It wouldn't be 7 because 7 is less than 8, and we know our number is supposed to get bigger. And it wouldn't be 5/2 because 5/2 is actually equal to 2 and 1/2, and 2 and 1/2 is still smaller than 8. So the possible number here is 16. This is true because whenever you multiply by a fraction greater than 1, your product is going to be bigger than your original factor, and 16 is bigger than 8. Next problem. If 7/12 is multiplied by a fraction less than 1, which of these could be the product? Now we need to think of the rule for multiplying by a fraction less than 1. What happens when you multiply by a fraction less than 1, comparing your product to your original factor? When you multiply by a fraction less than 1, your product becomes smaller than your original factor. For example, 1/6 times 1/2, 1/2 is less than 1, equals 1/12. And 1/12 is definitely smaller than our original factor of 1/6. So whenever you multiply by a fraction less than 1, you know that your product is going to be smaller than that original factor. So our original factor is 7/12. If we're multiplying by a fraction less than 1, then our answer must be smaller than 7/12. So which answer choices can we eliminate right away? We can eliminate 3 wholes because that's way bigger than 7/12. We can eliminate 12/12 because that's bigger than 7/12. We have left 7/12 and 2/12. The answer wouldn't be 7/12 because in order to get 7/12, you would have to multiply by a fraction equal to 1. We multiply by a fraction less than 1. 7/12 is incorrect. 12/12 is a possible answer because 12/12 is less than 7/12. And whenever you multiply by a fraction less than 1, your product is smaller than your original factor. For the next 2 problems, you're going to take a look at my work and check your work against mine. You're finding the area for both problems, and we know that area is equal to length times width. For the first problem, we multiplied our 2 fractions, length times width, to get our final area. And for the second problem, we multiplied a whole number times a mixed number. Take a look at my work to check it against yours. If you find that you made mistakes or that you had the incorrect formula, go back and revise your work. Pause the video here to do that. Last, we are going to go over the final product problem. But before we do that, today's secret code for a math review is ENGINEER, ENGINEER, ENGINEER. Again, the secret code is ENGINEER. So for the last problem, it says Jin is building a spaceship with snap together blocks. Each block is 5/8 inches wide. If the widest part of the ship has 10 blocks side by side, how many inches wide is that part of Jin's spaceship? So we know that each block is 5/8 inches wide. We have 10 blocks lined up, so we're repeatedly adding 5/8 10 times. And we know that repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. So my number sentence is 5/8 times 10. A couple of days ago, we went over how to multiply a whole number times a fraction. We multiply the whole number times our numerator and leave the denominator the same. So we got 50/8. And then we know we can't leave it as an FGTL, so we change it to a mixed number. The mixed number you would get is 6 2/8. But 6 2/8 is not an answer choice, so we need to work on simplifying our fraction to see if it can be any of those answer choices. 6 2/8 is also equal to 6 1/4 because 2/8 divided by 2/2 is equal to 1/4. So that tells me that 6 2/8 is equal to 6 1/4, which is answer choice C. As you're going over these problems, if you have any questions or if you're very confused on how to solve them, make sure to check in with your teachers before you take the Exit Ticket quiz. Otherwise, if you're feeling confident and ready to go, you can go ahead and take today's math review quiz. See you guys tonight at movie night. And if you're not joining us, talk to you next week.